My cousin Sherry, my mom's first cousin, was really upset when I graduated high school in Bible college. She said that I was too smart to be a preacher. Now, I don't know exactly what she meant by that, but that's what Sherry told Mom. She said that I would be a doctor, that I was so smart. Well, there is a reason I'm not a doctor, a physician, I should say. And there's a reason for that. You see, one year, Mom and Dad bought me a chemistry set for Christmas. And included in that chemistry set was a frog to dissect. I could not wait to dissect that frog. Now, I had to wait till summer because Mom wouldn't let me do it inside the house. And so one afternoon, some friends from the neighborhood came over. And we decided we were going to dissect that frog. Now, Mom made us lunch before we went out. That was a huge mistake. There were about, I think, 5 or 6 of us gathered around our picnic table with that frog set out on it. And Mom laughs to this day about how all 6 of us were bent over puking on the side of that picnic table. I was not going to be a doctor. I didn't have much use for anatomy. My whole academic career, the only thing I had to dissect was earthworm. I had to do that in high school, and that was it. When I ended this morning's text, David sinned with Bathsheba. And he ended up even killing her husband, Uriah the Hittite. And David spiraled into sin from his lust in his heart to his adultery to his murder of Uriah. Says much about sin. In fact, it is an anatomy, if you will, of sin. And David's sin teaches this lesson. One sin has many parts. One sin has many parts. Think about your own life. How many times have you lost your temper because you're tired? Or said the wrong thing because you were tired? How many times have you fallen into sin because you weren't praying enough? Or spending enough time in the Word of God? Now this morning, we're not going to make excuses for sin. Okay? Jesus said there is no excuse for sin. He said if you're not come, that there'd be excused for sin, but now that he's here, there is no excuse for sin. I'm not going to do that. Instead, we're going to look at how one sin has many parts. And as we look at 2 Samuel 11 and 12, you'll find that David's sin had many parts. The first part of David's sin is found in 2 Samuel 11, 1 and 2, and it's charm. Charm is the first part of David's sin. 2 Samuel 11, 1 and 2. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel. And they ravaged the Ammonites of the siege of Bath. But David remained at Jerusalem. It happened late one afternoon, when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house, that he saw on the roof a woman bathing. and the woman was very beautiful. The spring of the year, when King got back, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. And now you can pick up a whole bunch of commentary. And they're going to tell you that David was shirking his responsibility as king. Maybe. But the text does not tell us why David stayed behind Jerusalem. It may have been a very valid reason. The king may have had domestic affairs to deal with. We simply do not know why he stayed behind Jerusalem. But because he stayed behind Jerusalem, his life is never going to be the same. Nor is it going to be the same because he could not sleep late that afternoon. Sleeping. Gets up off his couch and walks out from his room. Another element of David's sin, partisanality. David didn't go to battle. He can't sleep. He walks out of his room and he sees the one baby. There was nothing wrong with David seeing Bathsheba baby. In fact, it's not David's fault. He sees her baby and finds her very beautiful. You know, you can make an argument that she should not have been out there, baby. Okay? But it's not David's fault that he walked out of the room and there she is. That's temptation. Temptation. That's craving. But David allowed that craving to go a step further. Notice the second part of his temptations, that craving. The first part's the charm. He sees Bathsheba, sees she's beautiful, and then he craves her. 2 Samuel 11, 3 and 4. And David sent and inquired about the woman, and one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" So David sent messengers and took her. She came to him, and he lay with her. Now she had been purifying herself before her cleanness. Then she returned to her house. David was tempted. You saw Bathsheba, baby. David allowed that temptation to turn into more. He sent and inquired, "Who is this beautiful woman that I have seen baby?" He allowed that temptation to turn to lust. And then he allowed it to go a step further. And he had people go and get her, bring her to him. He commits adultery with her, fornication with her, and then she goes back to her house. Step 1, the charm, the temptation. 2, the craving, the lust. Part 3 of David's sin, conspiracy. Conspiracy. Think about it. David involved others in his sin. He involved others in his sin. He made a conspiracy. David sees Bathsheba bathing. What's he do? He inquires of her. That's other people. Who is this? Then he sends messengers to retrieve her and bring her to him. Then, when she sends word that she's expecting, he sends a letter to Joab and has Joab bring or send Uriah home. David tells Uriah, "Go home, spend the night with your wife." He refuses to do so. David gets him drunk. Still, he won't go home to his wife, so David can cover up the sin. And so David wrote a letter sent it back with Uriah to Joab to tell Joab, put Uriah where the fighting is fierce, and when it becomes fierce, everybody else will die. Let Uriah fall and so. You see all the people that David involved in conspiracy, his cover-up, his sin? Who's this woman? Someone else. Go get her. People go get her. Joab sends Uriah home. Uriah himself carries his death warrant back to Joab. Now they're going to say something about the honesty and integrity of Uriah versus David. David knew that he could send this letter by Uriah, but Uriah wouldn't open it. That Uriah would deliver to Joab at the end. Uriah becomes part of his own death sentence. And then Joab and the men around him, there as the fight becomes fierce, draw back, all part of David's conspiracy to commit this murder. Part 4 of David's sin is the actual cover-up, verse 27. After Uriah has died, the mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. David couldn't let people know the king of Israel had committed adultery. He couldn't let them know that he had Uriah killed. So when that mourning period for Uriah was finished, he took Bathsheba, and she became his wife. Part 5 of David's sin. Confession. 2 Samuel 12:13. Nathan the prophet has gone to David, confronted the king of his sin. And David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, the Lord also has put away your sin, you shall not die. How could a man who committed adultery, who killed because of it, come and be the man after God's own heart? 2 Samuel 12:13. When confronted with his sin, David did not make excuses. You won't find an excuse for sin in the words of David anywhere. Rather, David said, I have sinned against the Lord. You know, I've been at this for a while. And I have seen people come forward on the invitation hymn, and I have really been telling me, tell me, if I have sinned, I want to pray for God's forgiveness. Now that's the most idiotic statement. If I have, well, I have it. Okay? It's excellent. You have. If you have, you need to pray for God's forgiveness. If you haven't, just stay in your seat. Don't tell me if I have sinned. You know, people like to hedge that. They hate. I hate to say I have sinned. But David says, powerful example. No hedging, no excuse. I have sinned against the Lord. Part 6 of David's sin. Care. And honestly, as I was studying this morning, I realized perhaps I should have put consequence here. rather than care. But David, as his child, laying dying, feels that care, that concern. He experiences the consequences of his sin. Notice 2 Samuel 12, starting with the second half of verse 15. And the Lord afflicted the child of Uriah's wife for David, and he became sick. David therefore sought God on behalf of the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. And the elders of his house stood beside him to raise him from the ground, but he would not, nor eat food with them. David feels the way he sins. You go to Psalm 32, Psalm 51, written after this sin. You see David's care expressed in those two songs. Think about this. As David experiences that care, the consequences of his sin, it's really, in a sense, not David bearing the consequence of that sin. It's that innocent child. Far too often, it's those around us, those who are innocent, who bear the consequences of sin. But David knows full well that care, the consequences, the pain of his sin. One sin has many parts. It wasn't one thing that led to David's adultery with Bathsheba. It wasn't then just one thing that led to his outright cold-blooded murder of Uriah. There's more to it than that. Several things came together and caused David, or led David, not caused, that was a certain stone, but led David down this path where he sinned. One sin has many parts. So what should you do? Because a single sin has many parts. You have to understand, we can't just live in sin. Sure, you and I are perfect, we're going to miss the mark, we're going to commit sin. But there's a difference in committing a sin and living in sin. And we have to do everything in our power to put sin away from us. 1 Peter 2:24. Jesus himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live in righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. 1 John 2. My little children, I am writing these things to you that you may not sin. And in fact, in Greek, John meant not sin even one time. Not even once. He goes on to say, if anyone does sin, we have an advocate for Father, Jesus Christ once. However, you and I must make it our aim, our goal, not to sin even one time. And because of that, and because we know that one sin has multiple parts, what can we do? Let's look at David. And let's think about how David could have avoided his sin. How could David have avoided his sin? He could have avoided his temptation. He could have avoided being tempted by Bathsheba. In fact, David had two opportunities to avoid this temptation. Write the text. David had two opportunities to avoid temptation. What if he had gone with his men to battle? He would never have seen Bathsheba bathing. He would never have committed adultery with her. What if David had kept sleeping and not gotten up off his couch to walk down the hill? He would never have seen Bathsheba bathing. Never committed adultery. Now, you can't blame David for getting up off the couch and going down the hill. No sin there. And I really don't think there's a sin in him staying behind Jerusalem. We don't know why he stayed. But there were two opportunities for David not to sin. Now, Satan is going to come and going to tempt you. Going to tempt me. He is like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. He's not going to give up. Now remember, Satan came and tempted the Lord Jesus. There is no sin in being tempted. And I don't mean to imply there is. But rather, here's my question. Here's what I mean by this. Do we make it too easy for Satan to tempt us? Do we make it too easy for Satan to tempt us? If I know I'm going to be tempted by something, do I go ahead and do it? If I know I'm going to be tempted by a certain place, do I go ahead and do it? If I know I'll be tempted if I'm around a certain friend, do I allow myself to be with him or her? We make it too easy for Satan to tempt us. David could have looked for a way out of this temptation. You understand that every single time Satan comes and tempts us, God provides a way out. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and He will not allow you to be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, He will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. God will provide you a way of escape. David had a way of escape. The text doesn't really tell me what that way of escape was in David's case. I really don't know. But I know there was a way to escape it. David didn't have to go and commit the affair, didn't have to commit the murder of Uriah, didn't have to get Uriah drunk and all the other things that David did. God will have provided and did provide a way of escape. Do we look for the way of escape? When you're tempted, do you look for the way of escape? Or are you like the man who was on the diet? He really was tempted to stop at Shipley's over here. And he prayed to God. God, if you want me to stop and get a dozen donuts, there's going to be an open parking spot in front of Chip's. I know that. And the 15th time he drove around the block, there's found an open parking place. And he stopped and got his donuts. Seriously? Are we not sometimes like that, man? There's an open way to escape. It's obvious to us. It's easy to spot it. It's easy to walk through it. But we shut that door because we wish to go ahead and sin and don't take God's way to escape. David could have surrounded himself with other people. Now, let me make 2 points right up the bat. When the king says do something, you do. Okay? And David was an absolute monarch. And so when David said do something, people around him said, you want me to jump, Your Majesty? King David commanded that type of thing. Second of all, it's very unclear that those around David had any idea of what fully was taking place. I mean, when David asked, who is this woman? You think those who answered him thought that David was going to take her as his wife, kill her husband, commit fornication and adultery? You think those who went and fetched her for him, went and took her, the text says, brought her to him, that they understood precisely what they may have? Maybe not. But what if the one who said, David, she is the wife of your wife, her name's Bathsheba. You don't touch her. Don't do such a wicked thing, is you? What if Joab had said, David, are you out of your mind? He's one of your 30 famous men. I'm not going to allow him to die. What if somebody had just spoken up and said, David, do you really want to? It's important for us to surround ourselves with people who will say to us, who will have the courage to say to us, don't do something. Don't commit this wickedness. 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. That quote, bad company ruins good morals, comes from an ancient play. Paul, by inspiration of God's Spirit, borrowed it. And you know why I point that out? Even the ancients, uninspired ancients, understood that bad company ruins good morals. How much more should we as children of God understand that? But the reverse is also true. Good company strengthens morals. I say that because the words Hebrews 3, 12 and 13. Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God. But exhort one another every day, as long as it's called day, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Exhort one another every day, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. That exhorting, that encouraging is so powerful. One of the reasons God created the church, His people, to encourage one another every day. so that we don't fall in sin. You have that support system. Then you surround yourself with good folk. Folks will say, oh, do such a wicked thing. Do you surround yourself with Jesus? Spend time with Him. Know His will for your life. Is the case this morning that you need to surround yourself with good people and ultimately with the Lord Christ Himself. You need to come this morning. Surround yourself with Christ and clothed with Him, surrounded by Him and with Him. You need to come this morning. We'll come right now. Yes.